and then moved on to PTC, IBM, and stayed there for over 20 years. Right now, Andy is with Total Materia. Total Materia is the product, and Key to Metals is the company. It's a Swiss-based company, and he works out of Antrobus, England. He's got sound knowledge about the materials, the CAE, and the mechanical domain. Very interestingly, ladies and gentlemen, we have got this reference through one of our partners, Allied Publishers. Allied Publishers is as old as independent India. In fact, much beyond. In 1934, and then Mr. Sachdev and family took over Allied Publishers in 1947. So they've been partnering with us. They are with us ever since SA India has set foot in Indian land. In fact, I'm very proud to say SA India's conceptual meeting happened in the sofas of Allied Publishers, correct, Krishnan sir? With Murli Iyer and Dr. Goenka in Chennai and Pune. So we are indeed very happy, gentlemen, to join hands with the two big alliances today. One is the Allied Publishers, who are the exclusive agency partner in India for SAE International for SAE Mobilis. So we came to know about Allied Publishers through Mobilis. SAE Mobilis is the collection of SAE standards, which is sold as a separate package for institutions, for mobility organizations, and SAE India. So in one of the meetings, we thought it would be a great idea if we could cross-pollinate. We can introduce their other products to the customers, because I am a big fan of the portfolio of Allied Publishers. One of the portfolio which is very important for all of you is the Total Materia. Total Materia is one of the finest database. Andy is going to talk about it. It basically international cross-reference tables with more than 20 million, Andy, from 74 standards and multiple materials side-by-side comparisons in a split second, over 450,000 alloys with mechanical and physical properties. You can export directly to other packages like Abacus, ANSYS, LS Dyna, Nastron. These are all famous solutions in the mobility area for CAE especially. So if you're interested in materials, you have come to the right webinar. We have had about 105 registrations. Right now, I can see about 30. It will go up. So Andy is right now the enterprise material strategist in Key to Metals AG. Excuse me. He deals with Total Materia, and Mr. Andy's experience spans 32 years in the engineering software as a user, developer, and the business development sales personnel of solutions that design, manufacture great products. I'm indeed very, very happy to rediscover Andy. We have worked together in Pune and Chennai. I took Andy to Tata Motors. At that time, it was Telco. And then Ashok Leyland. Good to connect with you, Andy. And I'll take 2 more minutes, Andy, to tell everybody about SAE India in case if there is somebody new. We always get somebody who's new, if you permit me. SAE India is celebrating its Silver Jubilee year this year in India with over 4,000 professional members, 486 collegiate clubs, and with 4 forums, 5 boards and committees. In fact, excuse me, we have Mr. Prakash Sardesai from Sutkami, who also chairs SA India's PDP board. Thank you, Sardesai ji, for joining. He is one of the senior members of SA India. He would like to listen to Andy.
Yeah.
And
thank you, Venkat. I'm all ears to listen to him.
Yeah, he's a great speaker, by the way. I know Andy well. So, ladies and gentlemen, without much ado, I'm going to hand it over to Andy. Over to you, Andy. We're all eager to listen to you on the fundamentals and total material. Over to you, sir.
Well, thank you for such a great introduction. As I said, my name's Andy Riley. I've had the pleasure of connecting with engineering companies for a long time. And the challenges around engineering are often about information, but also about sharing that information across the groups. And that's obviously what SAE is about, and it's what Total Materia is about. So hopefully over the next hour or so, I'll show you how we work and also how we can help you address the challenges of materials, but also communicate with all your colleagues to make great products that serve your markets. So I'll share my screen now. And of course, it's the joy of PowerPoint, you know, which we all spend far too long looking at. So if I share this screen and I really go to the presentation, hopefully that's looking good for everybody. I'm going to stop my video just because, number one, I'll break the camera. Number two, it uses bandwidth, and I'd like you to look at what we're talking about rather than me. So, of course, you know, all questions are welcome, but then we can go on with the presentation. So let's in fact, what I'll do is so that I can see your comments, I'll drag this window to here, and then everything's going to be perfect. Okay, so let's talk a bit about who brought us together here. As we just heard, one of the key points in our connection between Total Materia and our customers in India is Allied Publishers. And the person who's helped me produce this presentation is Krishnan. And of course, I'm sure he'd be very happy to talk to you all about how you can take advantage of both Total Materia and also Allied Publishers' other products. There's my contact information. Peter Metals is based out of Switzerland, but we also have a big technical base in Serbia. I'm sitting in the UK, and I was just joking, you know, it's 19 degrees Celsius here. And for us, that's a nice, pleasant summer's day. So I appreciate it's a bit different.
Andy, sorry to interrupt. We can't see the slide or anything.
You're missing it. It's so wonderful.
If you could kindly share the screen.
Oh, I'm trying. How's that working? Oh, that's better.
It's coming up. Yes.
Oh, fantastic.
Yeah.
Hey,
thank you.
Technology. Yeah, there we are.
Over to you. Yeah.
The interruptions are good. I like that.
Mm-hmm.
So what we're going to talk about now is really a bit about Total Materia and a bit about the data we have, and help you to also see who in the organization this matters about, because it's not just mechanical engineers. It's a wider group of people who are making decisions about materials that you're going to deliver in your final product. And often those people are not talking to each other, but hopefully we can help. We're going to talk about equivalence. And the reason we talk about equivalence is because so often you want to know additional information about the materials you're using. And that becomes even more important as we move into a more digital world where we're working with simulation, with compliance checking, with sharing our data with other companies or customers who are doing something else in the digital area. So that's a good reason why we want more digital information. And also then we look at the real world tools that we can do to help engineers make decisions. And lastly, you know, it's great when experienced engineers make good decisions that help your product, but sometimes you need to have a bit more control about who's doing that inside your organization. And we're going to talk briefly about that. And we have great examples in India today where experts are making great decisions about materials information, and then they're sharing that with more junior engineers or engineers in other teams, and making sure that those teams can only use that kind of data. So that's exactly what we do. And why we think we can help? Well, as we briefly mentioned, we have fantastic data and a team that pulls that data together. And we have great partners, both in India and other countries, that help us connect with users and with customers to make sure they can work in that way. But also, one of the things that we're really interested in is about what you need to do with that information. And the reason why, for example, for my role in the company is about enterprise materials, is it's not just about the data, it's about the decision process. You know, why do you select those materials? How do you connect it to the different tools? And how do you get engineers to respect, trust, and repeat the process of finding good information rather than just using Google or the material they've always used or the one they buy from their friend? You know, it's a great way to build the policies and processes that help companies operate in a high quality environment. So that's what we're going to do. And hopefully you'll get to see things that make sense to you. Just to give you a bit of a timeline about how we've been working with the product and what we've been doing over time. Oh, there we are. So as I say, we're based out of Switzerland. We've got a development office in Serbia. We've been working with Allied Publishing since 2013. And that's one of the key relationships we have across the world. We're not a huge company, but one of the key things that we can do is react quickly to what you need in terms of the data inside our database. And you'll see that more and more. You know, we are asking you what you need to be, what data you need from which companies, and we're adding it. And by the way, that part's free, so please don't think I'm trying to sell you that. It's, you know, good data is what we're about. So when we provide our solutions to customers, it's really about helping people work faster and more efficiently. And we have two key products in that area: Total Materia, which we're going to talk about mainly in this presentation, which is a reference materials database. It has data for commercial grade materials. And also a tool we have called Integrator, which is about the data for your company. It contains your documents. It contains the materials that you need with additional data. And we have got great experience in India, in the motorcycle industry, in the defense industry, in automotive tier 1s and tier 2s, with people using exactly this approach, and across many industries using Total Materia. So, you know, this is what real people and real engineers use across the world. So those are the two products, but fundamentally, at the heart of what we do is about data. And inside Total Materia, we have brought together metals data for over 370,000 commercial grade materials. It's more than actually 145,000 non-metals and polymers and composites and ceramics and many other industries. And then brought together compliance data as well. And our sources for this in the metals area, it's often standards based, including Indian standards as well. In polymers, it's often producers' data. There's less standards in that environment. In compliance, we're very closely connected to the legislation that's defining access to many markets across the world. And we have a tool to keep it all up to date. And then we complement it with additional data to help make this digital world operate better, whether it be additional data of corrosion or painting or welding or lubricant data, and as well, lots of data to support our dear friends in the simulation world with stress strain curves, fatigue curves. And this is really where, that idea that all of this data is connected using the same unit system, using the same terminology so that you can find and compare and decide about the materials in front of you. So that's really what's at the heart of what we do with Total Materia. And all that, as I say, all that data works together, and we base it around the standards organizations where possible. The reason those standards organizations are so great is because they have ways of describing information and pulling it together. And this is our current coverage of standards. It's 80 standards organizations with some 30, it's actually 36,500 standards inside that. So you'll be finding your SAE standards, for example. You'll be finding your VDA standards, your GB for China, your ISO. And as you see, we have coverage across the world. But because of that connected data, it means that you can follow the links and the comparisons between those different standards. And that's really what we're going to be showing in the demonstration and in the discussion later on. And also, we of course have to work with data from producers. There's thousands upon thousands of data sheets inside the system. And this is once again, if we are missing the producers that you need, that's what we want to hear about. That's what we want to add to our data. I'll give you a small example, even for the standards. One of our customers wanted to move production to Vietnam, so he needed the Vietnamese steel standards adding. That's what we did. That we took that work and of course shared it with all our customers, and that's exactly what brought value to everybody. Our current focus at the moment is we're updating a lot of the ship standards. So the connections between, for example, Lloyd's Register, DNV, many other organizations is enhanced because that industry is going through a growth period. We're expecting to do a lot of work around the Brazilian steel standards. So it's a living and growing area of data that we want your contribution to as well. And we're going to talk about cross-references. We have lots of tools, and we're going to show you how we can find our way around our data. And our data is compiled and analyzed by materials experts. Our data team is some 20 plus people. They are a mixture of materials engineers and chemical engineers with minimum of a degree or MSc qualifications, plus we have a number of doctorates. It's clever people making smart decisions. And just to give you an idea, the average length of service that those people have in the team is over 8 years. Okay, so they're not people passing through. That is a career choice for them. So that's one of the great things about the team. And also, when we put all that data together, we give monthly updates of that data. And the updates vary between 4,000 or 5,000 updates over to 45,000 updates. And that's delivered every month. And we do it to key quality processes. We're currently dual ISO certified. There's actually going to be 2 more added to that. So it will be 4 different ISO certifications in the next few weeks. Because we want you to trust the data, the information you're seeing, and our ability to manage all that effectively, because that's going to help you. So that's really about our people, our product, and really when we talk to customers, the issues we solve really are around avoiding inaccurate searches, avoiding problems with compliance when you send a product to America to then find out it fails regulations, or you have information and you don't know where that information came from or if you can trust it. It's solving both engineering, human communication, and business problems. That's really what we're trying to do. And interestingly, the discussions we have with engineers is often about helping them to quantify what is the challenge that they've got to solve. Is it a business problem, or is it a engineering problem? So if you look at the people around your organizations who might think about this, you might have a materials specialist or someone who's in charge of deciding which materials you use. You might have a CAE team who are constantly looking for the right data to help with their simulations. The good old CAD and manufacturing team are looking for the right materials to specify on a drawing or in their CNC machine process. The purchasing team, we can love them or not, but they have a key function to do this. They need to find materials that do the right work and they're available at the right price for the business. So we're trying to help them as well. As I mentioned before, the people looking at compliance, product stewards are often called. Do the materials they have avoid hazardous substances? Are they going to create a problem when they're brought together? And also the paperwork that needs to be declared to a manufacturer. They have a critical role inside so many organizations these days. And of course, quality. And I don't think we'll mention it today, but inside Total Materia, we have tools to both check the properties, but also to measure if the material you've received is the one that you actually specified. And then supply chain, you might be looking for where you're going to find it in materials, or sales. You're trying to sell your product internationally. And all this data gives confidence and efficiency. So hopefully I've not bored you too much, and it'd be good to just show you the product now. And of course, this is just going to be a very quick demo. And the reason I want to do that is just to show that we can bring it to life, okay? So this is totalmateria.com. This is a place that you can find lots about our product and about what we're doing, but also it's how we actually get into the product as well. We're using it's online, so you can access it from around the world with 26 different languages. So all the different languages, in different unit systems, and it works very simply. Okay, it's about finding materials based on a designation. You might know them very well, or you're going to look for different types of material. You could look for particular types of materials, so structural steels, for example, or you can look for different standards, and you can just type it in, or you can go down the list, or talking and clicking. You'd have thought after all these years I'd be good at it. Or you can look at all the different standards in one go. And this is what we're going to look at inside the demonstration in a little bit. So just for fun, let's start off with a material maybe that you're familiar with. We'll go to India. We'll look for a structural steel, just because I know we'll find some, and it goes and finds that information. And all I want to do is make it easy for you to see how we pull that information together. And so you're probably seeing a nice familiar group of steels here. And I'm going to click on one. And now the piece that we wanted to talk about in this presentation is about looking for alternatives. You know, and I want to start from the challenge that finding this particular information shows. So I've looked for this particular steel, 103CR, okay, and mechanical properties. It's all it's telling me in the standard is it's giving me some hardness and readings, you know, and I can see that that came from a particular standard. Now, if I was trying to do some work in simulation or something like that, that would not be a big help for me. What I need is more data. And that's really where the connection between the total material data starts to become useful. If you see on this right-hand side, I can see all the different areas of data that I can find. I can find physical properties, I can find heat treatment and things like this. And the reason I can do that is because of cross-referencing. And really what we're doing is using the intelligence of total materia and the work that the teams have done to go and find alternative sources of properties and materials that would help meet this 103CR data. And it could be that maybe you're using this material in India today and you need to find more properties. This might be a great approach. It could be that you're using this material in India today. You're looking at doing some production work or maintenance work in Brazil, for example, and you want to find an equivalent material. Or it could be that you've been given a specification for maybe a DIN standard material in Germany, and you want to find out a material locally that you could buy. All of these use cases are business challenges that I'm sure engineers on this call are facing every day. But let me just introduce you very quickly to the way that can be addressed with total materia. So just to sort of show you more interesting information that might help us decide which of these many alternative materials is interesting for us. So now I'm saying, okay, have I got mechanical properties for these materials? I want to look only for alternatives that come from other standards. So, for example, I only want to think about materials that are available from the European Union, or maybe from Japan or something, or you know, or Germany is always a great source of data, of course, as is Japan. You know, so now what I'm starting to see is equivalent to this material. I have all these other options, which bring me lots of great data to help me decide. And what I can then start to do is actually compare them. You know, and that is really what, you know, just a very simple example of both how total materia connects data and then puts it together. Let's just put it on the page so you can see it all together, so that you can start to compare what's an alternative. So here we're comparing the chemical composition. We can compare the mechanical properties between the different areas. So for example, the Brunel hardness, you can see 300. Brunel hardness, you've got the ranges that in that area. But also I can actually then start to if I go to detail view, I can start to see more and more information about which delivery conditions or which temperatures this material operates. And that's what's going to help my team, if I'm in purchasing, decide who I should investigate. Because when I look at this material, I not only have mechanical properties in detail for many different delivery conditions, but I also have supplier information and where I could retrieve that from. And one of the critical things about total material data is every single value, every single connection has a reference that you can use, add into a report or into a comparison. And the reason we do that is to give you the confidence to make that choice and share that with your colleagues or with your customers to say, this is the material we should use. And, you know, here's the data that I have and the history that I have that allows me to make that choice a good choice. You know, so this is just a quick view of what we do inside Total Materia, and I'll go back to the presentation. Of course, we can do we're going to do another demo anyway, but we can do lots and lots of demonstrations to go through what you do to show your business value. So that's really what you know, the key thing about Total Materia is. And when you think about it, you know, and quite rightly, you would be saying, well, if I look at a standard, what information do I get? You know, couldn't I just Google this, or couldn't I just look at supplier data sheets? Well, of course, all of those documents contain information. You know, so if you look at that, if I take that view that we had on the right-hand side of the page in Total Materia, you know, you'll find a lot of this kind of information in supplier data sheets, you know, and it'll be mixed depending on the types of supplier and also the type of material, if it's a polymer compared to a metal. You know, often you'll find great information from the standards in the mechanical properties area and things like that. So, you know, that's why standards aren't always the full answer. There might be a little bit more data in the standards in that area, but there'll be lots of areas where actually the additional information comes from other sources. And we spend the time, this is a Total Materia data team, spend the time looking at academic papers, industry articles, handbooks, to pull together lots of other data, for example, stress strain or tribology data or corrosion data into a single place. And then the logic that Total Materia has and the tool set we have and the technology is really building that cross-reference, that search, that connection between the data that makes it a significantly more powerful tool than relying on either just standards or just data sheets or just academic publications or just Google. You know, if you were to ask who is my biggest competitor, well, number one would be Google. Number two would be Excel. And the reason is you can Google anything. It doesn't necessarily mean that the data you find is good. In fact, Google themselves use Total Materia. So that's how good we think we are. And the other one is Excel. People create numbers. They have, you know, documents in their drawers that have numbers, which might be accurate. They might not. They might be up to date. They might be the same as all their colleagues. And that's really what we're trying to move beyond. It's having a reliable, updated, easy to access capability for people to look at great materials information. And as I say, you know, the reason that we can connect that data is about the consistent units. You know, it seems crazy, but it's the fact that we're all using the metric material system or imperial or SI units. It's connected. Therefore, you can compare apples with apples. You know, and when we look at that data, we also apply some logic as to what it really means to say something's equivalent. You know, and we have different ways of doing it. The first one is great because it's a standards organization, SAE, ISO, or many others saying, equivalent of a material A in a different standard is material B. That's probably the one that's most trusted, particularly if people are in the regulated industries, for example, rail, nuclear, maritime, etc. Then we have what we call official equivalents. And they will also be listed by standards organizations and reference books. And for us, that means we've got a clear reference line that we can say, a certain person or organization said these two materials were equivalent. Then we have composition. And this is really great. Well, it's more effective in the metal space, of course. But it's giving people an idea to how's the connection between those areas. And also, there's lots of other sources in terms of how we find our way through the data. For example, producers, many steel producers, for example, in their description of their materials, they will say this steel complies to 1.4201, for example, or something like that. Now, that's not the standards organization who said that, so we can't call that official, but we can say that is a source of information that you could trust, I hope. So when we look at data, we don't take everything on blind trust. We apply logic so that you can then also follow that methodology for understanding what you could do. And we also have a tool, which I'm going to show in a little bit, for the way that can compare and look at different data across that thing. And what that means mathematically is for our 500,000 commercial grade materials, and that's materials. Below that, we have a very, very significant number of what we call delivery conditions, whether it be hardened, stripped, plates, tubes, or anything like that. And then how that data connects is it creates 45 million different cross-reference connections. And our goal is to help you find, of course, materials that answer your need, but also can have data that helps you make decisions and drive your engineering processes. And we try to do it in a very simple way, but also documented way with references. And our team is there to support you and to help you find the right information. And I'll make it a very simple way of understanding it is we sell an annual license. That's how our software is sold. Now, the critical thing about us selling an annual license is we want you to pay for the next year as well. And it's not just about the product that encourages companies to buy extra years. It's the service that goes with it. So we're very aware that when you take a subscription with Total Materia, it's not just about using today's product. It's the support, the training, and the additional work that we can do with you that helps. So rather than look at PowerPoint a bit more, I'm going to show you a little bit more about finding equivalents, because the real world's a little bit more complex than just straightforward PowerPoint. And I'm going to do that just by looking at a list of materials that you might recognize or you might not, and we'll see where we go. So one of the things I can do inside Total Materia is I can actually save lists. So for example, I spent a lot of time in automotive. More and more automotive is about polymers. I don't think there's any big surprise there. And the other thing, as I briefly mentioned, is the polymers world. There's not the same amount of standards to compare, to make it quick to compare. So what I need to do is look for equivalent properties and the properties that make sense to me. So, for example, let's try rhinite. It doesn't matter which one. And here when we look at the data looks the same. which is good. It's that consistency we have across our products. But if you look at this, it's saying no equivalents have been found, no automatic cross-referencing. So if my view is actually, I don't want to buy from DuPont, one of the things that we have inside our data, a lot of our data, is what we call indicative price. So that's based on the different markets. What's a comparable price? Maybe I'm looking for something cheaper. Who knows? Never happens, of course. But effectively, I've got a specification, but I need to find an equivalent. So what I can do is then use this ability to do an equivalence find. And then what that's going to do is use the data that we have available to come up with some alternatives. So I probably want something that has a similar impact strength. I would probably want to have a similar density because it's got to weigh a similar amount. And also, maybe I want an equivalent chemical composition, maybe not. But let's just do a search there because, one of the great things about demonstrations is when you do a search, you want to start off with a large number of options and then refine it based on the information you've got. In fact, it's saying I've found over 2,000. So I can say, do you know what? I really want to make sure I can manufacture this part well. So I want it to go into to know that I have a similar mold shrinkage, for example, and I want the temperature, melting temperature, to be similar because I want to run it through a similar machine or whatever. So now we're coming down to 282. And one of the things I can see there is I've got a different range of suppliers, which is great because, I want my purchasing team to go and find the best one, but also maybe I want to see how much data I've got about them, and I can just improve the view of that. So I can just say, okay, how many mechanical properties I've got. I want to see where I've got as much of the molding information as possible. And you're seeing how much data we have. So it's interesting. We don't have that much melt flow data. All we have to for these ones. So for this company and Plascom, we're starting to understand that data. So what I can start to do is of course compare that, and then we can even then start to consider if I could how that work would look if I look at the compliance data and things like this. But this is exactly the kind of sorting of data, the understanding of where we want to go, to then look at this data, compare it, build different comparisons of it, and see which is the right material for me. So here you see the data. I can compare it. I can draw graphs from it. Funnily enough, I can actually just create just pin these before I forget. As I say, talking and clicking has always been I can pin those. Just create nice, simple reports that are ready to then email to my boss, my supplier, whoever, to show what are the current candidates, for example, and to work through this kind of data. So when we look at total material and the tools you have and the data you have, you've got an awful lot of information that allows someone with the skills and appreciation to make great decisions. And that's really one of the things that I want to sort of move on to talking about, really, because when you're looking at equivalent materials, you're going to make decisions yourself about what matters for your organization. Maybe mechanical properties is everything for you. Maybe you want to know that the materials you're choosing are officially equivalent by another standards organization because you're in the maritime world, or you're in the rail industry, or in passenger vehicles, or something like this. You want to ensure it's equivalent from a compliance perspective. So, for example, it complies with the GADSIL regulations for automotive. It complies with Proposition 65 in the USA. You're making those kind of decisions, and maybe it comes from a supplier you trust, who maybe has offices in your country, gives you great support. So the decisions about what is equivalent is not a math debate. It's not just math. It's about business interaction. And really, when you're talking about dealing with equivalence, you're starting to move to a point where the right people are going to make those decisions. And when we look at it, when we organize our data, we look at a lot of the impact of chemical composition and properties. But effectively, that helps us to organize this user interface to find data. Now, finding data is great, but really, it's about the right person in your organization doing that. And that's one of the things I would really encourage. Look at the data, find the right information, help principal engineers, maybe simulation specialists, experts, be able to contribute to that. And that's what Total Material does. It's the right people to find the correct information. It gives you confidence. And also, one of the things that you're seeing is, because Total Material is a well-known worldwide product, because we put the references on the data, the information and the decisions you make will be respected around the world if you're sharing them with people in Japan, in Germany, in the USA, or whatever. And that's the great thing, is you can say, I made this decision for this reason. Here's the data. You can check it yourself. You can even email them a link to the materials themselves, or share the reports. So, hopefully we can help you a lot in that way. And what we're seeing more and more and more is this decision-making process around materials is a business process. And the critical reason for that is probably raw materials and materials make up probably a third of the cost of your business. So it's significant money. It can be significant time spent finding and deciding on the correct materials that you see in the organization. Therefore, doing it well is both great for the business. It's also great for engineers. It can become a very respected role within organizations. I'm very pleased to say. And the way we help with that sharing information is everything we do can be built into reports that you can put together very quickly to show your logic as well as your conclusion. We document all the equivalents that we're going to work with. And as I just mentioned, and I could probably show it to you very quickly, but I will just show it to you. Everything that we were doing inside these materials, if I pick on a material, I can just export it to CAE straight away, but also I can just share it. I can bookmark it. I can share these reports directly by email as well. It's about not just finding data, it's communicating data that really makes it important for people. So that's exactly how it works. We're highly integrated, and we'll talk about that in a moment, but avoiding the issue of people retyping, mistyping, forgetting, delays, and that's why we're integrated into so many processes. But also, one of the things that we'll talk about very briefly is how this can be integrated into your engineering process. And just to highlight more about that, and I'll be quick, the token materia is about reference data, curated materials. We sell it as a single user for a few $1,000, or a few $100, sorry, up to corporate licenses. And there's people, I'm sure, on this call who have access to it from across the world. And token materia integrator, which is that private materials database. The two worlds are still connected. You can still access reference data and integrator from token materia. They are absolutely connected. But as I say, token materia is about reference data, having those global alternatives, sharing links, building lots of information, and sharing it with 28 different export formats, including good old Excel, of course, and CSV, and lots of other simulation partners who we work with. So that's a great place to work. But once you're into the integrator world, what you're really doing is looking at approved materials. So instead of looking at 500,000 possibles, maybe inside your organization, you only actually use 150 in total materials, and you want your engineers to focus on the data and the reuse of those, and only looking for alternatives when those are when they can't find the right approved material. Of course, you want the right people to see the right data. You want it to be secure. You might already have materials information. And one of the things that we've done very recently over a company with a large base in India is take their legacy materials information, bring it into token materia, look for those equivalents in international standards, and then what options they have. You might do your own material testing. We can manage all of that together. And also that connection to other engineering systems, for example, PLM. PLM is a single source of truth for the product information. We want to make sure the materials is part of that story, and we're connecting into that world. And it could be, and it often is, that for many engineers inside an organization, their view of the material system is only through the PLM system, and we've got no problem with that. We can connect, we can populate, we can enhance that data that goes into that area. So that works well. So, when we work with customers, we try to make finding material easy, make it easy to compare, make it easy to make equivalent. We really want you to be able to share that information, and also that increases efficiency and it increases confidence, and that drives savings in money, absolutely, time, and it improves quality. If we look at what are the sometimes the complaints, if you like, maybe you've got one team in purchasing that have one view of materials, and you have another team in simulation that have their own view of materials, their own values, their own properties, and then you have a different group in engineering. We can bring those people together so that they still have a way of searching for information together. Maybe they have their own view of that data, but it's consistent. It's not creating confusion. The part that's created in the factory is similar to the one that's designed in engineering, with the same kind of materials. We want that to be the way to work. Equally, for you to work with international partners that you can quickly understand what they need from their materials, and you can provide the right data back. So that's what we do. As we say, we work with Allied Publishing. We have great connections with the team. We support them technically, as well as they help us massively with the relationship and the connection. Talk to us. We love to talk about engineering problems. We love to talk about how this kind of work can operate together, and how those other organizations or those other departments inside your organization look at materials. You know, I hopefully we'll get a chance to have a meeting together, you know, talk to the right people, and you know, we'll do a proper demonstration, probably with somebody significantly better at it than I am, you know, and see how you can evaluate, you can test the system in the way it works, and build a story that hopefully makes your company more efficient. So I think that's most of my story. Just to remind you of who we are. So I'm Andy Riley. Krishnan, of course, is supporting us all from Allied Publishing. And I hope we get a chance to speak more in the future. So I guess it would be good for some to have a look at some questions, if there is any. I've not had a chance to look, and we'll see where the discussion goes. So thank you. Is anybody out there? If I stop sharing, that might help. Is anybody out there?
Any questions?
We are all there. We are all there.
We all are there.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So is there anything in the chat session or anything like that? Let me try and find it.
Any questions? Please unmute and talk.
Yeah, Ilengo, there will be questions in the chat box, perhaps. Ilengo?
No, the questions not there, sir.
Okay, fine. You can invite people to directly ask questions.
That's why I just said that. That's why I said that. Any questions, please unmute and talk, sir.